Public Nemesis Media.
The narration in this video is an English translation of one part of the book named History of the Macedonian National Revolutionary Movement, written by Dino Kyosev. That part of the mentioned book contains what's perhaps the best explanation on how the Macedonian nation separated from the Bulgarian nation. Kyosev wrote, quote, "Macedonia, which stayed under Turkish rule, has continued even after the Berlin Treaty to groan under decay, but the Sultanate Bey economic and state system was still stubbornly entrenched. In Macedonia, the farmsteading, dependence, and exploitation of the landless and completely disenfranchised peasants by the Bey's Çiftlik Sahibi, the workshop forms also existed in the cities for some time, only to be destroyed later by European capitalist competition, and together with the collapse of workshops, the crafts themselves were destroyed. The hated Sultan absolute despotism and the complete disenfranchisement of the population remained. The barriers that hinder the historically necessary capitalist development and social process remained. The bottom line is clear. The Berlin Treaty temporarily stopped the development of a bourgeois democratic revolution in Macedonia, almost in the state it was in on the eve of the Russo-Turkish War in 1877 to 1878. The development and completion of this revolution in Macedonia remained also later as a primary task in the economic and social development of the Macedonian people. This task had to be solved by the Macedonian National Revolutionary Movement, whose beginnings were found in the general Bulgarian National Revolutionary Movement of the 60s and 70s, whose manifestations intensified, although in most cases spontaneously and without a unifying leading center, in the 80s, and which grew in a real national movement after the year of 1893 with the creation of the Internal Macedono-Adrianople Revolutionary Organization. But this does not end the significance of the Russo-Turkish War and the Berlin Treaty. They were of enormous importance for the further development of Macedonia on its own path. Until the war in 1877 to 1878, the struggle of the Slavic masses in Bulgaria and Macedonia against the economic and spiritual slavery of the Greek exploitative layers and the Constantinople Patriarchy was conducted under the general slogan of Bulgarian churches and schools for the Bulgarian language and culture. Also, the revolutionary struggle of the popular masses against the Sultan absolute system was conducted under the general slogan of a Bulgarian national state for freedom and independence under the general leadership of the Bulgarian state. Therefore, both during the time of the church-school struggle and during the time of the National Revolutionary Movement, the struggle of the Slavic population in Bulgaria and Macedonia was always common and joint and was conducted under common slogans and for common goals. That is completely understandable and natural. At that time, the Slavic population in Bulgaria and Macedonia, as was pointed out elsewhere, due to the common proximity of the language, difference in the language is exhausted only in dialectical deviations, and culture formed a single national community. The population in Bulgaria and Macedonia was placed under the same economic, social, and political conditions of life and development on a common territory. In that situation, a national awakening in those lands has developed on a way towards forming a common Bulgarian nation. The striving of this Bulgarian nation for freedom and independence was manifested in the struggles during the era of national revival and the National Revolutionary Movement until the Russo-Turkish War. That is why the struggle of the popular masses in Bulgaria and Macedonia, which was fought under the banner of Bulgarianness and Bulgarian statehood, cannot and should not be divided into Bulgarian and Macedonian, but should be considered and evaluated as common, unified, and nationwide. However, after the secession of Macedonia from the Bulgarian state, which took place by virtue of the Berlin Treaty, a number of important and decisive new situations occurred in the development of the Bulgarian nation. The nation as a historical category is subject to continuous development in accordance with the objective conditions under which it is placed to live and act. In the events that the territorial, economic, and cultural integrity of a national community is torn in two, and one part of this community is made to live and act for a long time not only separately, territorially, economically, and culturally from the other part, but also under other economic, political, and social conditions, the further development of one part of the nation will proceed in accordance with some multilateral conditions, and the development of other parts of the nation will proceed under other multilateral conditions. If this division occurs in the period when a nation has just awakened to an independent national life, when a nation has never yet had its nation state, when the division is deep, long-lasting, and the conditions of the new life are essentially different, it may come to secession of one part of a nation from the other part, and to the division of a nation into two independent nations. History is giving us such examples. Almost until the middle of the 19th century, the Slavic population in Serbia and Montenegro has belonged to one national community, the Serbian nation. What's more, there was a time when Montenegro was considered the cradle of Serbdom, while the derisive name of Serbs in Serbia was used to express their national quote-unquote inferiority. However, as a result of the territorial, economic, and political separation of Montenegro from Serbia and the prolonged existence of Serbs in Montenegro under conditions radically different from those in Serbia, Montenegrins broke away from the unified Serbian national community and formed as an independent Montenegrin nation. The same separation of Macedonia from Bulgaria, with the same consequences of separation of Macedonian Slavs from the Bulgarian national community, took place after the Berlin Treaty. As a result of the victory of Russian troops and the peace treaty signed in Berlin, the independent Bulgarian state was created without Macedonia. While the Bulgarian nation continued its all-around and rapid development within the framework of this national state, the population remaining in Macedonia under Turkish slavery continued its further development under the conditions of the absolute Sultan Bey regime. Relations between Bulgaria and Macedonia were severed. A territorial and economic border was established along the Rila and Osogova mountains. The economic life of Bulgaria has oriented towards the Danube and the Black Sea, and the economic life of Macedonia towards the Aegean Sea. In Bulgaria, the war led to the liquidation of Chiflikism and opened the way for rapid capitalist development, while in Macedonia, Chiflikism was preserved and capitalist development was hindered by a system of Sultan absolutism. As the basis for the Bulgarian literary language in Bulgaria, the Eastern speech was adopted, which is too far away from the Macedonian speech. To these and other factors for the further development of Bulgaria and Macedonia should be added the activity of the internal Macedono-Adrianople revolutionary organization of Goce Delchev, which preached and educated the population in the idea of an autonomous, independent existence of Macedonia, in which an implacable struggle against the politics and demands of Bulgaria's government towards Macedonia. All this led to the gradual, at first unnoticed, but later more and more clearly manifested separation of Macedonians from the Bulgarian national community, and also their gradual formation as an independent Macedonian nation. The oppressive and predatory regimes of the monarcho-fascist cliques from Belgrade, Athens, and Sofia after the First World War further strengthened the process of forming an independent Macedonian nation. Before the Second World War, the process of forming the Macedonian nation was significantly advanced, including the Macedonians in Bulgaria. Our immortal Georgi Dimitrov said before the 5th Congress of the Bulgarian Communist Party, quote, "Before the Second World War, a powerful progressive Macedonian movement was launched in Bulgaria in the name of the right for self-determination of the Macedonian people as an independent nation, which found the most energetic support in our party." End quote. In this way, the Russo-Turkish War and the Berlin Treaty initiated the process of the creation of the separate Macedonian nation on the basis of the separation of Macedonians from the Bulgarian national community by virtue of the changed objective conditions. The process of separating Macedonians from the Bulgarian national community and their gradual formation as an independent Macedonian nation took place under the very complicated conditions of prolonged internal unrest in the former Turkish state and several wars, accompanied, among other things, by a significant displacement of the Macedonian population, migrants, immigrants, and refugees. A significant mass of Macedonians was dispersed to other countries. Hundreds of thousands remained to live in Bulgaria, some of whom had moved 40, 50, or more years ago. A large part of those Macedonians, living far from their birthplaces, remained far from the movement to shape the Macedonian nation. Many of those Macedonians, especially in Bulgaria, America, and even in Macedonia itself, subjectively remained with a Bulgarian consciousness and continue to feel and call themselves Bulgarians, others, less often, Serbs or Greeks. End quote. Once again, this is a part of a book called History of the Macedonian National Revolutionary Movement, written by Ymir United Revolutionary and Bulgarian Communist Party member Dino Kyosev in 1954. The specific part of that book you heard in this video are pages 66, 67, 68, and 69. I hope you enjoyed listening to this video. More videos that discuss this viewpoint on the Macedonian ethnogenesis, as well as some other viewpoints, will see the light of day soon. Until then, I'd like to thank you for listening. God bless, and goodbye.